referral when you don't clean that way. Surprisingly, it's not too bad. So this is the rear levelling valve on a 6.9. Of course, no longer available, but they can be rebuilt by people that know what they're doing. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I don't have the specialised tools for machining out the interior when it's gouged out. If you don't do that, and if that's the problem, they're just going to continue to leak. He has retrofitted the late style shafts off a 560 that have the flange and the disconnectable inner joint, and they have been rebuilt because that's not what they look like from the factory. And that's the Hydro pneumatic suspension strut. This one here is of course leaking. One of the joys of 6.9 ownership. Constant suspension leaks. So here we are under the front. It's one of the front Hydro pneumatic suspension struts. Also a bit wet. Naturally, everything here is no longer available, but they can be rebuilt. The bottom side of that behemoth M100 6.9. That's an auxiliary transmission pump for cooling the transmission in hot climates, I believe. I don't think Euros have that. It's mainly USA and Australia probably. Though my knowledge might be rusty on that. And you've got the spheres for the suspension. This one here is for the left side strut, and that one is the central pressure sphere that basically maintains the whole system pressure. This side is hidden. I can't remember where it is. It's in there somewhere. All in all, it's not that different from basically any other MB of the era. Still got the recirculating ball power steering. The right hand drive drag link, which I believe is no longer available. The idler assembly for the steering with bushings upper and lower. I believe someone's actually cut that slot into that strut cup to access the, or to put a tool in there to unscrew it. So I don't remember that being there. There's your oil filter canister. Unscrew that and drop the whole thing. And yes, they have dry sump lubrication, so hoses going off to a tank in the front fender there. But you drain the oil from both of those, so from here and there. This is a older version transmission. This is a 722.0 series, quite similar to the 722.3. A bit more difficult to change the filter in that it's got these lines bolted onto the pan, but yeah, that's not rocket science. It's just 4 bolts and that drops, and then you've got the filter inside. And you can drain the torque converter as well through here. Neither of us thought to bring a 50mm socket for the crank pulley today, so we're going to use the starter, if there's any battery power left, to rotate this torque converter and drain it out. We are changing the ATF today. And like most recirculating ball power steering systems, the box is a bit wet. So now we're going to try and find this drain plug on the torque converter using the starter motor. Go ahead. So after 1,000 attempts with the starter, we did get the drain plug in the right place, and I just brought it over into the middle here using the screwdriver levering on that tab of the torque converter, being very careful not to snap any more of those fins off. That was not us, that's happened in the past. So now we can drain that torque converter. It's just going to go over it. This is fucking ridiculous. We're using a Pyrex container, courtesy of my kitchen, so we can see if there's any rubbish in this transmission fluid. And yes, I will wash that and make my dinner in it later. You can let go. Can I? Okay, so I can take this out, burn the crap out of myself. Correct. It's not going to shatter it, is it? That's some nasty looking transmission fluid. It's not even possible for light to go through it anymore. Anyway, this is getting too heavy to hold with one hand, so I need to turn the camera off. Because these pans don't have a drain plug, you basically use that banjo fitting to get the draining started, and the other one on the side.
No gloves.
It's pretty clean. So out of interest, this car was actually in Australia before they were actually officially released here, and it was owned by MB Australia. We believe it was a USA version vehicle. Well, not the vehicle, but the engine and transmission was destined for the USA market, and modified once it got to Australia. Because it actually has on the transmission valve body USA version, as well as on the block. It's stenciled on there as well, and this is a 1976 car, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, they were never sold in Australia in 76. It might have been a press vehicle, or maybe for the CEO of MB Australia in Victoria. We will never know. The differential was kind of hammered, as well as the transmission had some issues internally when he first got it, so it's had a hard life, probably when it was new. Driven rather spiritedly, I'd say. It's now time to get that filter off.
Screw's done up to about 300 newton meters.
So some interesting discussions we just had. Yeah, this is a mid-76 built chassis, European delivered, because it still has the badge on there. Would have been driven around for about a year in Germany, and then at the factory it was fitted with a USA version engine and transmission in sometime in 1977. Because this right-hand drive car has a left-hand drive engine number, and yes, it has USA stamped on the side of it. So it was done at the factory, because the data card for this car does actually represent that left-hand drive engine number on this right-hand drive chassis. So it was probably a press car for Australia before the official release, or it could have even been the test car for Australia, to know they can handle our extreme conditions. It would be very interesting to know the details on this car that we've tried and failed. And MB themselves can't even answer that question anymore. So changing the filter on these is not really any different to any other automatic transmission. You do have these strange looking bolts with spacer tubes that you've got to get in the correct orientation. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. It's not rocket science. It's pretty clean. This has done 40,000 kilometers. Right. It's not too bad. So the genuine MB filter kit is going in now. And that's the part number. And that's the whole kit with the gasket and the seal rings as well. So this pan gasket only goes on one way. There's a tab at the front. And there's only one place that can go, even though it's square.
It's got a slight manufacturing defect. Hopefully that will
Where?
not piss out everywhere.
Is that a manufacturing defect or is it just dirt on there?
That's a defect. Okay, so we go on that way. I need to get these things ready. Not sure they were
The
sanded,
4
but-
bolts, which need to be cleaned first. So we're at the finishing stages now. Pan has torqued up 7 Newton meters on those bolts. Torque converter drain plug is tightened up to 14 Newton meters. Tim's just tidying up because he's a bit OCD. And then we're ready to drop the car, preferably when he's not still under it, and get some ATF in that transmission. And of course that's with the engine running, and we set the final level when it's up at operating temperature. And that is a Lyle brand funnel. Great for transmissions. Just got 4 litres of ATF in the transmission, and we're going to start it up now and put in the remainder when it's at operating.